Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode.
I'm very excited to welcome all of you into the March month, where we are showcasing extremely powerful individuals, right from a climate tech expert to a person who's actually beaten all odds in terms of health and the technology world. She's a senior director in software. And I am also super excited to share our male ally to share what he thinks about women who are breaking various constraints and various barriers and how he looks at the world very, very differently. I am super excited to share the introduction about Hiranmayee Vedam. Hiranmayee or Hiran Vedam, as she calls herself, is a sustainability expert for more than 20 years. And she's a CEO of Ashwatha Earth, which is a venture studio building very cool tech solutions in this space. And she talks about not only how the industry has changed, but also the kind of solutions, be it energy storage or be it how recycling is happening, as well as how the AI is literally changing the world of deducting raw material, as well as how it's being handled across various supply chains. And she's also sharing how the world of technology and commercialization has really transformed the world. Hi, Hiran. Welcome to Software People Stories. So happy to have you here in our podcast to talk about climate, your career, and the works. Thank you for joining.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I look forward to our chat today. Although I'm not a software people, but I hope I can still contribute and talk about climate.
So much is happening in the climate front with software at the helm. So I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Hiran, introduce yourself a bit for our listeners. I know you for almost a year now, but I would still like to hear your origin story, how you started and what you have done so far.
Okay. So I am currently building Ashwatha, which is a venture studio for translating breakthrough science into sustainable industrial scale companies. So my background is chemical engineering. I started my career in process systems engineering and moved on to materials and commercialization of advanced materials in climate tech, and have been in climate tech, basically technology commercialization for 17 plus years.
This is awesome. I mean, today, climate seems to be the mantra. I'm also happy to welcome you as part of our Women's Month. And you being a distinguished women engineer, part of IIT Madras. Tell me a bit about your own struggles in the initial time to even define yourself in the climate tech. Climate as a space also is changing quite a bit. Its name is changing quite a bit. So how have you adapted in this world?
Okay. So when I started the technology commercialization part of my career, I was actually a grad student building some technology that was being piloted as part of a consortium. Okay, so that's where I started in the energy space, traditional petrochemical energy space. Then in the second phase, when I there was a part where I was in technology transfer. And there I was evaluating a lot of nanomaterials. So this was a period when nanotechnology was being talked about a lot, and there was funding, a lot of funding going into nanotechnology. And I looked at nanomaterials for a variety of applications, and finally kind of settled into nanomaterials for energy environment. So then it was called clean tech. Okay. Then that was still about 2013, 14 or so, it was clean tech. Then come 2021, around that area, like around that period, it suddenly was being called climate tech. It doesn't matter whether you call it clean tech, whether you're climate tech, what it actually encompasses. What we are trying to solve for is create a sustainable future for all. So if you look at the planet, if you look at the 5 elements that we talk about, right? Except for energy that we get from outside this planet, everything else we have on this planet is pretty much what we have. It transforms from one form to another. But so, for example, water transforms into liquid, solid, gas, whatever form. Similarly, most of the other materials. So that circularity is important. But modern technology, we have built a lot of things that cannot go into that recycling or circular part of what nature has developed. So we need to come up with new ways. Otherwise, we are consuming more and basically borrowing from our future generations, leaving them nowhere. So it's our job to ensure that we live sustainably, develop solutions to solve for the sustainability challenges that we in the modern world have created for ourselves.
I cannot agree with you more. While I am not a climate tech person myself, I do think of myself as a very climate conscious person in terms of segregating my waste or reducing the amount of travel that I do and ensuring that we are using the right material for a right thing and so on and so forth. So when you talk about your own the industry's transition from clean tech to today's sustainability industry, if you can use the word, what are the significant growth areas that you are super excited about? And I am also asking on the eve of Impact AI space, that a conference that is happening in Delhi right now as we speak. So what are the key growth spaces that you are, Ashwatha Earth, or you as a person who's interested in the space looking at?
I think in the context of the question you have asked, I think energy in all its forms and storage of it. And when I'm talking about storage, I'm not talking about the electrochemical storage or essentially form of storage. But in the thermal storage or CO2-based storage, all these other forms of storage, they become more and more important. So there are early stage solutions. So being Ashwatha and given my own background, I'm more biased towards earlier stage solutions rather than things that have scaled like solar, wind, and others. So, for example, fusion you need solutions like fusion if you are going to solve for the energy needs of AI today. Right, you need to have great grid infrastructure, which means you need materials that can transport a lot more. Everything kind of boils down to better materials, better systems to use those materials to solve for the energy problem, just the energy problem. Okay, there are other climate-related issues that we won't go into today, but just that. In that context, I would say energy storage and energy generation, those become important.
I mean, when you look at energy, I always used to think energy from a solar energy, wind energy, and how do you really store it, part of it. But you are actually talking about fusion, thermal, and how things may happen. So when is that?
Well, okay, if I may add, so energy, when we think of energy, I mean, I think of it as, okay, the electrons and then the others, like, the molecules and neutrons and photons, all these other forms of energy, right? The electrons part of it, which is what the solar, the wind, and all of that give you. But if coming from a chemical process industry background, right, we need as much heat as we would electric. Okay, so heat, where do you get that heat? Today we burn fuel. Okay, your transport, you can electrify transport to an extent, but I mean, electrifying a ship or electrifying an airplane, especially the long distance airplane, those are different challenges. So you need alternate forms of fuel there, right? And you can't just rely on solar and wind because of the space constraints, because of the other challenges. So you need more efficient ways like the fusion, to generate that energy. So even if you're using electrons, you need better forms of better ways to generate those electrons. And electrons alone are not enough, so you need more sustainable other forms of energy, like liquid fuels or gaseous fuels.
And I can't wait from transatlantic flights to be fusion energy driven, and that would be really, really cool. When we speak about some of these climate tech, clean tech aspects of it, typically we look up to the Western world in terms of innovation. While when we look at grassroots level innovation, we look at global south, frugal innovation, and so on and so forth, right? So when we, from your lens, when you look at the quote unquote climate problems that we are seeing today in global south, what are the challenges or problems that you are seeing in this space in terms of what kind of a problem statements that you would wish that we address today? Because fusion, I understand in terms of the amount of investments that is needed and amount of ground level research that are needed. And what are the things that you think we can address today and soon enough?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the climate tech developments in the global south, right, we are doing quite well in the B2C or application layer of solutions. Marketplaces, we are very good. Financial model, new financial models to deploy, like whether it's solar or EV or any of these, coming up with financial models to deploy them and roll them out to consumers, we are doing very well. But when you look at some of these high impact areas like decarbonization of the industry or heavy transport, those kind of things, we are still far away in terms of ability to absorb or even understand the technology risk appetite that is required. And being invested, thinking strategically and investing for the long term. That's another area where most of us, I mean, the global south doesn't seem to do so well because we have limited resources and we are trying to there are people who are hungry today and you're trying to provide the resources to them rather than think about strategic areas that have longer term impact. Also skills constraints. And all of this means that translate into financial constraints for developing those kind of solutions. So that's where we should be doing better. And some of the models we are working with for venture studios is to unlock those kind of those kind of solutions.
You're saying, for example, let's say a global south is known for frugal ways of reaching to people and everything. We are already using some of that, but are we not getting enough credit in terms of when we say decarbonization? Is that the space that you're
We,
referring to?
yeah, so if you look at any of these, like whether it's in the hydrogen space or alternate fuels and all of this, or carbon capture, any of those, we India specifically, we don't have access or ownership of the fundamental patents that are required in this space. Okay, and so what ends up happening is that you end up kind of import or the manufacturing ability and all of that. Okay, that comes a little bit downstream. So without those, you end up having to buy those critical components from elsewhere and just doing your balance of plant kind of solutions, which means of the, like, let's say 100 the value, you're capturing only, like, the 5% or 10% of it, leaving the rest to basically go out. The other challenge is that there are a lot of industries that have moved from the developed world to developing world. Okay, so the solutions for decarbonizing them or to make them more sustainable are not should be the focus of what we are doing, and the research labs are doing that. But it shouldn't end there. They need to be brought to the market, and that's where ability to understand the technology risk, how to de-risk them, investing for the long term, training the skill sets, all of this comes in. And that's what we should be doing better.
I really like what you're saying in terms of not just from having a research, having a PhD to back it up, but also able to get access to these patents and having those commercial labs to give that runway towards commercialization or take it to the market, and how that goes, right? I think that those are the problems that Global South is not doing well. So let me turn this question other way and say, can we talk about a few examples that we are doing well in terms of startups working in the climate space? I know there are several startups. I personally am working with a couple of them myself from Sangatna Angels. I would like to hear from you some examples of some startups that are doing it. If you can't name them, it's all right. But if you can give some examples in terms of the spaces of climate change, sustainability that Ashwatha is working, I think that will probably prove for our listeners some examples.
Well, Ashwatha, we are a venture studio, but we are a very young venture studio. So we are building our first startup in the PVC upcycling space. I mean, PVC, we all know, is used in pipes, it is used in medical equipment, it's used in a variety of places. But today, most of it ends up in the landfill. So if you leave it there, you're producing methane and all those related emissions. So that is one challenge. Which also means that the resources are being locked into something that cannot degrade for a very, very long time, right? So, and this is a global problem. And it's a growing problem in the global south or in emerging markets because, I mean, construction is happening a lot more in these countries. We are all growing in terms of our GDP. And so we are producing a lot more of that and we are using a lot more of that. So this is a problem that we need to solve for, not just for the global south, but for the whole world. And so that's why it is so exciting for us to be building a solution like that. And that fits into our thesis of, okay, here are problems that need a global solution. We can find some solution in India to build them. Let's kind of build it out based on the local constraints and local challenges and all the constraints I talked about. And if we can build it here and prove it here, then, I mean, it's a solution that can work in most of the world because we have already solved for the economics, we've solved for the, the cost constraints and all of those. So that's how we look at it when we think about like what excites us. That's what excites us.
Yeah, it's not just about costs, right? It's also about distribution. If you think about it, India has some of this varied geographical as well, and not just from ecological differences, but also the kind of terrain that we have. It solves for multiple different types of regions and demography of people who are using also. So it's a lot of these things. If you in a larger picture, climate change is a big interventional aspect of it, right? See, today, if I go to a function, I do like to have my bottle. It starts from there. Why shouldn't we actually have a ever silver, go and fill it? It's so a lot of these things start from there to the point of change in mindset and ability to trust the other person to build it. Right? And are there some examples of companies that are doing extremely well in this space? I think when we were prepping for this conversation, you talked about hydrogen capture in terms of hydrogen storage, carbon capture, and so on. So, can you give us a few examples in terms of how the early stage research is happening, pilot phase, and how Ashwatha is helping these organizations?
So, I mean, I can give you a software example where they are building a SaaS kind of a solution to track emissions of a company and figure out where the emissions, like, and track scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, being aligned with the compliance requirements and figuring out how they can reduce it and providing them solutions around that. There are companies that are doing digital twins. In my younger days, we used to call it model predictive control, where you would model and then use that to optimize your plant. Now the optimization parameters include your carbon emissions. So the digital twin will help them, optimize for, reduction of emissions, the parameters that you can use. So those are the kind of solutions, right? So there's another solution that was kind of managing the speed at which your vehicle can travel, so that you optimize for, the fuel efficiency of the vehicle. So these kind of software solutions are there. But if you look at like more hardware, hydrogen storage is one space where there is some interesting work happening in India. Carbon capture. So there is one group that is developing like a DAC solution, that direct air capture solution, that takes carbon dioxide and captures it into a material that you can use in the cement industry. So these kind of solutions, and there are several of companies that are doing like agricultural waste to biochar and producing carbon credits and those kind of solutions. I mean, there are a number of these that are doing some really interesting work and solving for the challenges we are all facing.
When you started, you said you're not in software, but you are actually using all the right terms in terms of optimization, in terms of measurement, in terms of modeling behavior, modeling as well as predictive behavior. So you are, you may not
that's my process
software.
systems.
Yeah, you may not be writing software, but you are certainly leveraging or utilizing the power of software, if I can use the word. That then software, I think if I can change the topic a little bit towards AI, that seems to be the clear mantra today, wherever you see. While I do have reservations in terms of, AI using huge amount of GPUs, and I don't know what that impact in terms of climate change. But I do see the several applications. Two of the companies that I'm working with are using AI-based solution to make a change in the same climate space. So what is your view as an expert to looking at how AI is going to change the clean tech or a sustainable industry in itself? Is it going to make it better, worse, or accelerate? What is your perspective?
Well, I mean, I don't want to predict any long-term trends, but See, you can optimize something if there is something that needs to be optimized. Okay. And and I think AI is good at it. For example, like AI can accelerate your material discovery that is required for several of the solutions we talked about today, right? So but the fundamental solution needs to come from somewhere. If I know how to do it, AI can certainly help you optimize it, right? And because of the infrastructure needs of AI, of course, solutions around energy optimization, cooling solutions, all of these are coming. And we need better cooling solutions, not just for AI, but as an adaptation solution for the warming world. So I mean, these are just some couple of examples. I mean, we can think of a lot more, like based on models and that kind of solutions for better monitoring of methane emissions in agricultural fields. I mean, several areas. But I think this gives you a flavor.
But I will give you a couple of examples where I am excited about application of AI. One is 25 years back when we speak about minerals which are being mined. We used to have actual human beings going in and seeing, whether it is okay or not. And also my own, close relative has gone through tremendous amount of, health problems when you go into several thousand meters below the earth. I think now that is changing, which I'm very excited about in terms of having automated robots actually going and deducting whether something is worth enough and is it safe enough, right? Having actually that kind of a testing and all of that. I think I'm excited about what that could help that industry, the whole industry, because minerals are needed and we are going to continue to have that rare earth metals. I think I'm excited about that. The second I'm very excited about is one of our portfolio companies is deducting to the street level how much of flooding could happen based on the gradient of their of it, and on top of it they're actually looking at the rainwater, their flood water, what is the size of the pipe, and based on the weather and the size of the pipe and the gradient, how much water is going to flow and how much, and based on the various it's literally like creating a tributaries of sorts from the river, and seeing how much is the level of the river going up, so that early warning systems can be created. While it is a huge amount of data that is needed, what you said is right in terms of right now, while it looks AI is the promise, but most of amount of time that they are spending is actually creating that foundational framework of data in terms of, it could be the gradient, it could be the level of water or the flow of water and all of that. I think I'm very excited about the possibilities there, because earlier, if you think about it, even that used to be done manually. Now we are able to build those things, I think. And some of these case books and that they are talking about is very exciting, but still I am looking forward to you able to say, okay, how much of AI can be used. As far as the ground research is concerned, what you said is right in terms of, if there is no data, if there is basic data, then it's easier to accelerate. If that material is not there, how do you accelerate, is where I feel companies like Ashwatha and Sangatna can come together in terms of doing sort of a ground level research. So, having said this, right, what sort of a model is this venture studio model, and how do you think it envisages this work on climate, Ashwatha, in
Okay. Yeah. So if you look at like how technology to market is funded today, the research happens in the research labs, or I mean, somebody is developing it for a software. They're probably developing it in their backyard, in their garage. But after that, so you then go to, so there is a founder, and then you go to the incubator, you get incubated, or then you participate in variety of acceleration programs where you get the business expertise that you need. And then you grow the company. At some point, you get your venture capital, your investors, angel investors, venture capitalists, and so on. Okay. The missing piece in all of this is that what if the world needs that solution, but there is no entrepreneur to build it to start off with, okay? Or, it is still in the lab and there is nobody to build it out, okay? That's where we come in and say, okay, let's take we come in as an institutional co-founder. We will take that technology. We'll bring in the co-founders. We will kind of bring them up and do that 0 to 1 before institutional investors can come in and take it up in their usual way. The other key difference between a venture studio and a venture capital firm is that a venture capital firm typically works on the power law, based on the power law, which means 1 in 10 succeed or 1 in 20 succeed, and they do 1,000 times better than anybody else. We are still a winner, because that one success makes up for maybe 90% of them failing and 1 or 2 succeeding okay, and then the one that is doing the 1000x kind of a return. But that model means that only one solution gets to the market, everything else kind of gets stopped. As a venture studio, we really help accelerate the path. That is one thing. We also improve the success rate, okay, significantly, because they are not, the founders are not kind of, going and figuring out everything. We are providing all that support so that at least the number of mistakes they make is significantly reduced. Okay. We bring in the experts that are needed to de-risk them, to make it faster so that they succeed. So maybe 9 out of 10 succeed instead of 1 in 10. So that is the key difference between a venture studio model and a venture capital model, and all the other support systems that we have in the ecosystem.
Fantastic. Particularly, climate space is all about early intervention and deep know-how of the space, multiple skills that are needed to make that early stage mistakes, to avoid that. I think this has been I am so glad to have this conversation with you, Hiran, and may more power to you, and hope to get more information, more startups follow the space and make a big dent in this space. All the best to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And yes, looking forward to doing a lot of things in this space together.
All righty. Thank you so much, and happy Wednesday again. Bye-bye.
Happy Wednesday. Bye.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
please subscribe on your favorite podcast client
and spread the word in your network.
If you'd like to share your story,
contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.